So hello and welcome to our last meditation on the sense spheres. And the word Dharma is sometimes equated with the English word nature. To see the Dharma is to see nature, to see what's natural in this world of ours. And meditation makes us a little bit a naturalist, where we are looking and understanding what the nature of this life is like, especially the nature of ourselves and our mind. And the naturalist has the ability to see what's happening without disturbing what's happening, without interfering with it. And without holding on to the branches of the stream as we go down the canoe. We can just flow along with the natural flow. So one of the most natural things for human beings is to have thoughts. And it's possible to just know that there's a thought that appears. And there's a kind of a marvel with the arising of an individual thought sometimes, because it just seems to appear out of nowhere. Just sit quietly and a new thought arises. And so in this exercise on the senses, six senses, there is thoughts, and then there's the reception of that thought in the mind. The mind knows it, that there's a thought. And then there's the fetter, the entanglement, the knot. There's a way we get involved in that thought. And the way that, and one of the ways we see that is when a thought becomes thinking. A thought is a relatively brief phrase or sentence or image that we have. And then we get involved in it. We pick it up, we respond to it, we add to it, and then pretty soon we're kind of lost in a whole train of thoughts, and it might take a long time before we come out of it and know that we're even present. And so it's possible just to sit quietly and be aware of the thought when it arises. And then, distinct from that, know how we get involved in it. Know the pull into it, the reaction to it, the horror to it, the judgments of it. All the secondary things that go on that involve some kind of being caught in it. But if we are able to be a naturalist of thoughts, thoughting, it can be very relaxing. If we don't assign meaning to a thought or value to a thought, or we don't define ourselves by the thought. I'm having this kind of thought, therefore I'm a wonderful person. I'm having this kind of thought, and I'm a terrible person. It's just a thought. This idea of just a thought. Just thinking. And this is one of the places where I think it's valuable to add the word just in the label, in the recognition of thinking. Just a thought. It's just thinking. And just like a map is not the location that the map represents, so a thought is not the thing that it usually represents. It's just a thought. And to settle back and be able to just see the arising of thoughts, and then see if we lean into them or pull away from them or get caught in them. And that's seeing the knot, the entanglement. So, assuming a dignified meditation posture. And part of the value of being careful with your posture is that the more you can be embodied in your posture, the less energy there is to pour into thinking. The more you can really be careful and embodied in your posture, the more that's a grounding. here in the present moment. It's like an anchor that keeps you from drifting off. And then lower your gaze about 45 degrees. Relax the focus of your eyes so you're not looking at anything in particular. And then gently close your eyes. And settle in, relax with your body. Gently, calmly, take some deeper breaths, fuller breaths. And as you exhale, relax, settle in. And letting your breathing return to normal. And it's really invaluable to relax when you meditate, to have an upright posture or a clear posture, intentional posture, and then to relax within that posture. So you might relax the muscles of your face as you exhale. And as you get more and more familiar with your face this way, you might become more and more aware of the subtle emotions, the subtle muscles that can be relaxed, softened, released. Over time, there's more and more awareness of muscles maybe you never even knew you had. On the exhale, relaxing the shoulders. And going to the belly, and on the exhale, softening the belly. In the exhale, release your body, the weight of your body, into whatever is supporting it. Cushion, a chair. And then some global way of relaxing the whole body. If you're bracing yourself against life, soften as you exhale. And then relaxing the thinking mind. On the exhale, softening tension or pressure, contraction associated with thinking. Calming any agitation associated with thinking. And then take a few moments here to be aware of thoughts arising. Turn your attention, allow yourself to think, and know the thoughts that arise. You don't necessarily have to know the content of the thoughts, but just the event of thinking. And as you do so, are you involved in your thinking? Or can you just observe them from a distance? Observing them as natural phenomena. There's no need to judge or define yourself by your thoughts. The thoughts just arise, appear. Sooner or later they disappear. Are you involved in your thinking? What does that involvement feel like? Like a glue, like a strong gravitational pull? Strong interest? Worrying about something? And then settling in with your breathing, but attentive to the arising of thoughts and any entanglement with thinking. And the alternative to entanglement is to simply observe it as a naturalist. It's nature for the mind to produce thoughts. There's no need for you to get involved in your thoughts. Come back to your breathing. Breathe with it all. It can be a relief to leave thinking alone, leave thoughts that come and they go. Leave them alone. Not bothered by them, not favoring them, not concerned. They're just thoughts. And then as we come to the end of this sitting, one of the powers that come with observing thoughts is to know which to put down, let go, and which to get involved in. And as we begin to come out of meditation, the thoughts that are nice to have and to participate with a little bit are thoughts of goodwill, kindness, friendliness. And perhaps there's people in your lives or people you know that you could have a few moments here of thinking caring or generous thoughts about them. With a light feeling, not a duty or heavy, just lightly. Positive, good feelings, thoughts about them. And this is not just letting your stream of thinking be random and without any agency on your part. From time to time, it's nice to choose what you think about. And think about goodwill and friendliness to yourself, to others. And in this way, may we keep close by as we go through the day. The friendliness, the goodwill, the care that comes from the wishes. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free. So, This week we're talking about the Buddha's instructions for how to practice with the sense doors. And it's to be aware of each door, the object that sense door takes in. So for eyes, it's sight objects. For hearing, it's sounds. For the tongue, it's taste. For the nose, it's smells. For the body, it's tactile experiences. And for the mind, it's thinking. The word for mind here is mano, M-A-N-O, which maybe is closely associated with the thinking part of the mind. And so, if it kind of goes along with the other senses, the mind produces thoughts, and that is somehow registered or known by the mano, by this part of the mind that recognizes there's thinking. And then on top of that, in addition to that, there's a kind of mindful knowing. So it's not just kind of vaguely or somewhat aware that there's thoughts going on, but this knowing of mindfulness is a clear kind of definitive, like, oh, this is thinking. This is just thinking. You don't necessarily have to say those words to yourself, but there's a way in which we step back or turn around and look thinking directly in the eye and say, I see you, thinking. This is thinking. And observe it. And I think this idea of being a naturalist of thinking conveys the idea of that the thinking is natural phenomena, and we are observing it, but not necessarily defining ourselves or identifying ourselves with the thoughts. And this is a fascinating and wonderful thing, to allow a thought to arise, but not place ourselves in the thought. Some people live in their thoughts, their whole identity or their kind of feeling or sense of emness, I am, I exist, is somehow taken up residency in the middle of thinking. And so it's inconceivable to think about not thinking, because that's, who would I be if I wasn't thinking? It's also, some people feel lost if they're not kind of living in their thoughts. And but we don't have to live in our thoughts. We don't have to take residency in our thoughts. We can have thought just be a phenomena that arises. That's no different than going outside for a walk, and a leaf blows off a tree and blows down next to you, and that you don't take the tree as you. You don't define the leaf as you. You don't define yourself by the leaf. You don't maybe necessarily get involved with wanting to take the leaf home and deciding that you're a great leaf selector and you need to let everyone know what a great capacity you have of selecting leaves from the sidewalk. You don't get involved. Just the leaf just falls, and it's just, it's maybe a nice part of the just falls. So the same way, thinking, thoughts can just be at the same relationship to them, where we take up residency not in the thinking, the thoughts, but in the awareness of them, the knowing of them. Now it's a little bit tricky because the knowing of them could be seen as a thought itself. But this is we're talking about maybe different levels of thinking, different kinds of thinking. And the very simple thought that knows, oh, that's thinking, that's just a thought. That's also a natural phenomena, but that's a natural phenomena that supports this freedom, supports this disentanglement. As we begin to, so this whole thing about the sense doors is quite fascinating, because the more and more we are able to kind of be present at the point of sense contact and recognize the knot, the entanglement, the bias, the leaning into or pulling back, we start seeing our bias, our prejudices, our desires, the influences we bring on top of it. And we are seldom innocent observers. We often have preferences, wanting and not wanting, and it can be very, very subtle. I've told this story before, but when I was a teenager, I went to Morocco, and I don't know how it is now, but when I was there, the men wore yalabas, these gowns. They were striped gowns, vertically stripes. And as I was walking around after some while being in Morocco, I had this funny feeling that my mind was lighter, clear. So there was a little different feeling in my mind. And as I kind of tried to understand what was going on, I came to the conclusion that in the United States, I pegged people. I didn't just see people, I had a judgment about people because I recognized something about them. That was a jock, that was some kind of businessman, or that was this or that. And I had little judgments about them. And maybe there wasn't, well, maybe it was the judgments were not exactly conscious, but they were there. And Morocco, where all these men were wearing yalabas, I had no context to understand anything about them, about their professions, what they did, their politics, all kinds of things. And so and so my mind was lighter from not making those extra judgments. So to not live in ordinary thinking, but to live in awareness, the awareness in which this arises, and then be able to see the entanglement, the knot. And a big part of the knots, the entanglements we have, is in fact to thinking. Because if I see something, I don't necessarily automatically get entangled to that. I do have a thought about it. And it's a thought that I get caught in. That's somehow the knot around the thing I'm seeing. And so to be able to settle back and observe thinking, to be aware of thinking, to be quiet enough, still enough, open enough, present enough to see the birth of a thought, to see a thought appear. There it is. And it's just a thought. And then, are you entangled with it? Do you chase it? Do you then have a follow-up thought and a follow-up thought? Or do you just allow the thought to just be there like a leaf, the single leaf that's falling from the sky? Just a thought. And then, that kind of freedom that that gives of seeing and not being involved in thoughts gives us a freedom to then choose what we think. And there are things to think about. And one of the things to think about is goodwill, is kindness, is friendliness, is support to others, is to appreciate people. That I think that this it's all too easy for people to have a negativity bias, and for all kinds of reasons, and be predisposed to seeing what's wrong and what's not right. But if we can choose what we're thinking about, maybe we can choose appropriate ways to really appreciate people and see their beauty and their wonderfulness, and choose to think about how to support people and be friendly to people. Maybe that seems like a lot of work and extra to do, a little artificial to do that, but it might be better than the alternative. If you're watching your mind carefully, choose the best alternative for the mind. Don't choose the alternative, the option that is for your detriment. Thinking, critical thoughts, judgmental thoughts, harsh thoughts, unkind thoughts. It's not really healthy. So thinking, thoughts, mano, So this level of practice of this I'm talking about this week, where we are tuning into the knots, we can begin to also start seeing the conditions, how we get knotted, the desires that arise, the aversions that are there, the frustrations, the stresses we're living under, the stress we have, that they're kind of the conditions for us to more likely get knotted up. And knowing those conditions, then we can kind of maybe adjust those conditions so it's easier to know how to let go of the knots. We don't necessarily have to let go of the thought, but we let go of being involved in it and caught in it. And this is a wonderful thing, to let go of knots, to dissolve the knots, to untie the knots in the mind. And one of the reasons it's wonderful is that knots take up a lot of space in the mind, a lot of energy, a lot of bandwidth. And when that bandwidth is not preoccupied with the knots, there's then much more room, open space for the factors of awakening, for some really also natural phenomena, but natural phenomena that's really kind of some of the great treasures that are within us. And those are the 7 factors of awakening. And that's the next exercise for the Satipatthana text. It goes from the 6 sense bases to the 7 factors of awakening. And then we make a transition now to looking at what leads to liberation, to freedom. Once we get a hang of the aspects that keeps us from being free, the hindrances, the aggregates that we talked about last week, and now the fetters, the knots that we know what those are well. Those are the things that keep us from being free. And as we release them and free ourselves from them, then this new energy, this new possibility states can come, ones that are onward leading towards freedom. And this is one of the great kind of rewards for doing mindfulness practice. When we get to the point in practice where we start flowing in these beautiful 7 factors of awakening, of mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. So that'll be the topic for 2 weeks. Next week, Matthew will be here, and Matthew Brent Silver, and doing the 7 a.m. teachings while I'm away. And then the following week, I'll be back. I won't be here at IMC, but I'll be back on the YouTube, and we'll do the 7 factors of awakening. Thank you.